welcome. I'm going to cover a very strange sounding chord here, the Augmented 6th chord. This is something we learn on the Creative Classical Guitarist. It's a special type of chord. We've got, this is one of the sort of slideshows that we go through in depth, talking about the Augmented 6th chord. I'm not going to do it now. All I'm going to do here is go through these exercises that you can practice. And they're chord progressions. They were created by our very own Eli, who runs one of our sessions, Foundation Composing Sessions. So if you're part of CCG, please make sure you check out those great sessions. And so basically we have different keys here. We've got Italian Augmented 6th chords. We've got C major, A minor, progressions, and then G major, one sharp, G major and E minor, and then two sharps, D major and B minor, and so on. We don't have all of the keys, just the common keys for the guitar. And then we have the German Augmented 6th chords, which is a slightly different variation, and then the French Augmented 6th chord. I will very, very briefly run over what an Augmented 6th chord is. So an Augmented 6th chord is basically a variation of a predominant, it's a type of predominant chord, you could say. So it's a chord that you expect to come before the dominant. So you can see the 5 chord there. We go 1, 4, and then Italian Augmented 6th. So 1 and then 4, and Italian Augmented 6th chord. It's a very crunchy chord, has a lot of impact. And then we go to the 5 chord and then back to 1. The way it's produced is you take your minor 4, minor. So in the case of C major, that'll be F minor, F, A flat, and C. Then you raise the root note of the chord. So you make the F into an F sharp. Then you put the third in the bass. We put it into first inversion. That's why it's called a 6th chord, referring to the inversion. It's also referring to the fact that it creates an augmented 6th interval. So from A flat to F sharp, that's an augmented 6th there as well. So it's a very spicy chord. Composers like Bach, So, Tárrega, Barrios, Mertz, Aguado, Giuliani, Villa-Lobos, lots of composers have used them. There are some examples. I don't want to go through it in too much detail. Just want to focus on these exercises. Now, playing exercises is one of the best ways to actually learn about chords and progressions and things like that. And there are a couple of things you can do with these progressions. Obviously, you can just practice them, and that's already a great start. So you practice them. So in C major, it starts like that. Okay, and then A minor will sound a bit different. We have the 1, 4 is D minor, and then the Italian Augmented 6th chord, very spicy. 5 chord, E7, A minor. So practice them, identify the chords, really important basic things you want to do. Practice them, identify the chords. Okay? Maybe I'll play through a couple more keys just so you get a more of a feel for them. So G major. No, that's just a tricky one. Next one here. E flat. C sharp. Have I got that right? No. Okay. Cool. All right. So one little trick here about this chord is that one way to produce it. This is a really complicated way to think about it. But an easier way now. I'm trying to give you a clue because it really helped me. It just clicked in my head again what you can do. Basically, you can take your 5 chord and shift it up 1 fret. So if you have your G7 chord like that, hopefully you can see. I know it's probably a small screen right now, but if you got your G7 chord like this, maybe I'll swap camera angles here so we can see better. There we go. Yeah, so if you have a G7 chord like that and you shift it up a fret, that's your augmented 6th chord, and then it goes back to there. So in G major, we have this shape. That's a D7 shape, very common D7 shape, this one. If you just shift it up a fret, that's your augmented 6th chord. And then, okay, so that's what's happening in the example there that we saw in G major. So I want to give that little tip out because it can, you know, when you have two flats and a sharp in a chord, it's like crazy. So yeah, so shift that. This is a much more standard chord shape, shift it up one fret and then slide it down, okay? We'll probably see that for a lot of these. E minor, A minor. So B7, I can see if I skip over to B7, it's very standard chord. But if we look at this chord here, before it, yeah, that's another example. Shift the B7 chord up, it's C7. C7, but it's not spelt as C7 because it's an augmented 6th chord, and then shift it down. All right, so there's a little shortcut for probably most of these examples. If we go again, yeah, we can see here. So there's a movable shape. So if we play that A chord, we shift it up, augmented 6th chord, A major. So really great for your understanding of what the augmented 6th chord is, your fretboard knowledge, your knowledge of keys, your knowledge of progressions, your technique. All right, so certain things you can focus on when you play these chord progressions. Let me go back to the large screen here. So certain things you can focus on. Obviously, your left hand technique. We're barring, we're putting chords down. We want each note at a very basic level. We want each note of the chord to be clear and sustained. Okay, it sounds very obvious, but that's, you know, it's an absolute must. Every note you want to be clear and sustained, right? We don't want to get things like that, yeah? Where like even one note that's lifted off early, it can have a big impact on the whole chord. If every note is sustained, keep your pressure down, you know, keep it down so that the notes are ringing on after they've been played. Okay, I could talk a lot more about the left hand, but I'll keep it at that. I think that's just a very, very good thing to focus on with chords. Keep your fingers close to the fret, keep your wrist straight, basic things. Keep your shoulders, you know, aligned, all that kind of thing. With the right hand, with chords, really good thing to focus on is your sound and generating power. And one way to do that is by following through from the knuckle joint. See what I'm doing here? It's not too loud, is it? Yeah. Okay. So following through from the knuckle joints, keeping the fingers very relaxed, pushing the strings down a little bit. And that's how you can get that nice full sound. Another thing to think about too is the line that your fingers are creating. So you don't want the line to be too much at an angle like that, where the fingers, you know, the A finger is plucking closer to the bridge, a lot closer to the bridge than the others, because you'll get this kind of harsh top string. So you want to try and create a straight line or a straighter line across, so that my A finger's not sounding great. I just filed my nails yesterday, so they're not, it's a little bit scratchy. There's another thing you want to check too, right? Check the quality of your sound too. I'm not super happy with that. If I had time, and if I had quick access to my, sandpaper, I would. Anyway, it's okay. It's just passable for me. Yeah, so trying to keep that line straight, so the A finger is, yeah, and then following through from the knuckle joints, right? That's how you can get that power with minimal effort. It's the movement that generates the power. Okay, so just a couple of technical things you can focus on with those chord progressions. So we'll go back to this one. Okay, so a couple of other fun things you can do now once you've got the basics of these chords down. I'm going to introduce you to 3 things you can do. Okay, 3 things you can do. The first one is you can treat each note as a voice or a melody or a melodic part and bring it out. And this is a really good exercise because in guitar playing, whatever guitar you play, especially classical guitar, we often are playing multiple parts at the same time: bass, middle, and melody, counterpoint, melody and accompaniment, whatever it happens to be. So developing the skill of bringing out different parts is really important. And one good way to do that is if you have a chord progression, and treat each voice as a part. So for example, the bass is going like that. All right, so we're going to bring that out. So that's our bass voice. Then we take the middle voice, you call it the tenor voice, and that's going. It's sometimes nice to just play them. So you can see how the tenor and the alto are probably the most static. Actually, the bass is the one probably moving. They're all actually moving quite smoothly, really. So that one's going. So I'll bring that voice out with the I finger. The index finger is going to be doing that. It's probably the most challenging ones are the middle voices to bring out. So that was the tenor. Now we can go to the alto. So the C. That's what that one's doing. So we go. Okay, and then the top voice. Probably the most. Obviously, I'm really not happy with the A finger right now. But we'll try that. So. Okay, now I'll play them all relatively equal, and you might hear some new movements, some new layers and movements between the voices. So whenever you're playing a chord progression, any sort of piece, study, or anything like that, it's really important to think about the layers, the voicing, what is the main thing to bring out, and what's in the background, what's in the foreground, what do you want the listener to hear the most, and then what's more like in the background. And imagine if there were multiple instruments, voice being the foreground and piano being the background, for example. Okay, so that's one first exercise. Second exercise you can do is arpeggios. Just add arpeggios to them. Now they're 4-note chords, so there's quite a lot of arpeggios that you could add. You could just do ascending, going, you can do repeat. I'm gonna fix it right now. I need to fix that. Got my sandpaper. I use micro mesh. I highly recommend micro mesh. If you're in, well, I think the best place to go is Amazon. You just type in micro mesh, and probably the easiest place to find it. Micro mesh. You should be able to find these little squares. I quite like them because there's a bit of like padding on them. They're not like thin pieces of paper. So let's see if that. It's better. It's better. Still a bit of work. Bit of work can be done, but just get really important, right? If your tone's not optimal, just take a minute. It shouldn't take long to just give them a quick. Let's see. Yeah, that's better. That's better. Okay, so arpeggios. trying trying to find the sweet spot, Again, we don't want it to be too, we don't want the A finger, the line to be too whatever you call it, steep or whatever, We want it to be more across the string. Yeah, I'm still not super happy with my sound, so I'm going to give it a bit more of a... But yeah, so there's lots of... Because they're 4-note chords consistently, there are a lot of arpeggios you can apply. You could go to the, the famous Giuliani 120 right-hand studies. That's one place you could go, for example, and apply them to... So I know number 1, for example, goes like... No, number 1 goes, I think... something like that. So you could do something like that, right? Lots of options for arpeggios. You could do tremolo. Tremolo is a really great. They need some serious work actually right now. Anyway, so tremolo. Let's hear another one. A minor. You can do something like up and back. Like a. Right, that's a fun one. G major. One thing I did forget to mention when I was talking about the technical aspect of it is anticipation. So what I'm trying to do with especially the left hand, I'm trying to think of the next chord, and I'm anticipating. See what I'm trying to make that movement really efficient. This one, that's a tricky one. Going from this to that. But so what I'm trying to do there is, if I kind of slow down the thought process, is something like that. I'm molding the fingers into that next chord shape, and then, but it happens in a flash. In real time, that has to happen in, like, I call it snap motion. It's like you snap your fingers, and boom, that just the chord just changes immediately. Yeah. So you want to develop that kind of skill. Okay, so arpeggios and anticipation. Lots of great things you can do with these exercises. Let me know if you have any questions. I see there's a few people watching, so thanks for watching. Let me know if you have any questions. I'm going to have to wrap up pretty soon, so love to know if you have any questions. Okay, so the final thing I'm going to talk about, so we did the technical aspect, and we did the voicing, playing the bass and bringing out the bass, bringing out the middle, our bass, tenor, alto, soprano. Then we added arpeggios. Final thing, and I think this is the most fun, and how often you're going to hear classical guitarists talk about improvisation, improvising around these chords. So because they give us a framework, they give us a set of limitations and boundaries that we can improvise around. So one really quick way to get started is, already arpeggios can already be a form of improvisation if you improvise the arpeggios, if you change from one arpeggio to another, one pattern to another, kind of randomly. But what you probably want to try and do is create a melody and an accompaniment. And to create a melody, usually you need some passing notes or passing tones. So if we do, now there's a few types, and we go through this in the Creative Classical Guitarist. There are two main types, accented, non-accented, but for the purpose of this exercise, I think lower neighbor, let me use this. Lower neighbor and upper neighbor. Those are two really good ones. Maybe we could try. Yeah, let's just try those lower neighbors and upper neighbors. So if I have an E, that's the melody. If I want to do an upper neighbor, I'll go up to the F and then back down to the E. So like that. Or if I wanted to do a lower neighbor, I just drop down to like that. Okay, then I can move to the next chord and I can just do a similar thing. If you want, you could go, I went upper neighbor and then I kind of went up to the next, F, and then I did lower neighbor and then upper neighbor. What did I do? No, I didn't do that. I just went upper neighbor, back down, upper neighbor, and then up to a new note of the chord, an A, right? This way, if you understand your harmony bit, it helps. It gives you more options because you know that F, this is F major in first inversion with A in the bass, F, A, C. So if you know that, then you know that A is a chord tone, so you can move from this chord here, upper neighbor, G, and then you can go up to the A. Okay, so just added a few passing notes there. That's something else you can try. So you can add passing notes. Lower neighbors and upper neighbors are a really great starting point. You can also put some non-chord tones or passing tones into other voices that don't have to be in the melody, but primarily they work well in the melody. So I'll try that again to give you a rough idea of what I'm doing. Oh, I forgot to do that. This is a tricky one. Okay, so what do we do? Could do something like that. Generally adding like little scale segments can work well to create passing notes. So I'm basically connecting this chord and then taking that C there and in the middle voice, or no, it's sort of the F is dropping to the C really. And then from there you can start to, lower neighbor and then down. Well, this is not a lower neighbor anymore. That's just a passing note filling in the gap. So F, E, D, and then you can stay there. You go back to an F. That's a sort of like a turn almost, where you're kind of going down and then back up. So there's a lot of these are not random. A lot of these things you see in music, these types of figures and passing tones, and they're not random. They're patterns. They're formulas that are very common. So so you can give that a go. So to finish up, because I've got to wrap up now. And let me check first if I have any questions. No questions. To wrap up, I will do an improvisation here in A minor using these chords. So I'll maybe I'll extend it a little bit around the fretboard a little bit more, just to give you an idea of some of the possibilities that you could do. All right, so I just kind of looped it around a few times and added various things. I did go to some higher, instead of staying just to this A minor, I went to the fifth position and then a D minor there. If I was very clever, I could do this augmented sixth chord up higher, but I'm not quite there yet. I should be able to do that. It's the same trick that I said earlier, right? You get the dominant, you shift it up a fret. So now I can do it in the fifth position. A minor, D minor, and then I'm going to shift the dominant this there. So then now I've got a bit more freedom to do that. So sometimes, you can take a minute to work things out if you want to try something like that and improvise with these progressions. So yeah, so that's Technique Tuesday for, July 15th, Tuesday. And you can also do the German and the French augmented sixth chords, but I hope that gives you some ideas of, what to practice, how to practice. And if you are watching this and not part of the Creative Classical Guitarist, please consider joining us. We have a technique sort of challenge every Tuesday. Last week was simply to use the metronome, record yourself playing with the metronome, because I know a lot of guitarists neglect the metronome a little bit. And right now, we're looking at arranging for woodwind quintet or wind quintet, shortcuts that you can use for arranging on MuseScore. You can get arrangements done very, very fast. We're also looking at melodic development techniques like sequences, transposing, imitation, augmentation, diminution. Basically, if you have a little melody and you want to develop it in these different ways, you can learn about those techniques. Plus, we have masterclasses twice a week. We have recitals coming up next month. I need to remind everyone, please, if you are on the CCG, please consider signing up for a recital. Choose 3 to 5 pieces. Hey, Fred, thanks for joining. And gosh, there's so much going on. We're going through a method book every week as well. Arenas method. What else do we have? That's about it, I think. Foundations. We've got recitals. We've got master classes, and we've got an advanced class. We're looking at arranging. That's been so fun. I mean, the other day we looked at Summertime by George Gershwin, and how you could arrange that, and just it's so quick using MuseScore. They copy and paste, and you can transpose at the click of a button. All these cool features that can save many hours. So if you'd like to join, there's an application. So just fill out the application, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And if you have any questions, please leave a message in the chat as well. I do read all messages and try to respond if you have a question or anything like that. So thanks so much. I've got the heater next to me. It's a bit cold today here. So see you next time.